People are still joining, but I did want to go ahead and just welcome you all once again to our career day. And I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker for today. And our keynote speaker today is Dr. Corey Grayson. Excuse me one second, I'm still letting people in. So I do want to make sure everybody's here before I begin talking about how wonderful you are, Dr. Grayson. Oh, they're still coming. I tell you what, let me give it one more minute before I start, okay?
Okay, that works.
Ooh. This is so exciting. There's so many dragons. Welcome, 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 everyone. Okay. We have a really large number of dragons here to listen to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if anyone joins the waiting room, I'll just let them in as soon as I finish introducing you so that they can hear everything about you once you begin speaking. Guys, I would like to introduce you today to Dr. Corey Grayson. Dr. Grayson is a biomedical engineer, chemical engineering researcher, and a diversity advocate in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. She's a first-generation student and a proud alumna of the HBCU, which is Historically Black College or University, Norfolk State University, where she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry in 2012. Corey obtained her Master's of Science in 2017 and a PhD in 2020. And she received that PhD in biomedical engineering from Cornell University, where she elucidated a sensitization mechanism of current chemotherapy drugs used to treat metastatic prostate cancer to a nanoscale therapeutic that selectively kills cancer cells in 2D and 3D prostate cancer cell culture environments. Good gracious, I don't even know what most of that means. But what I do know is that she's saving lives. So to me, that makes her a superhero. Let's see. Currently, Corey is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Michigan in chemical engineering. Her research will focus on the evaluation of novel nano and microparticles for therapy in neutrophilic acute inflammatory disease and cancer. Corey has received the honor of making the 2020 list of influential African American women to follow on LinkedIn and the Cell Mentor 1000 Inspiring Black Scientists in America list. How impressive is that? Corey is passionate about increasing the number of underrepresented minorities in STEM by illustrating that representation matters. She is the diversity chair for At Women Doing Science, which is a popular Instagram account that showcases women in STEM from all over the world. She's also on the planning council for STEM Noir, a holistic wellness and research retreat for Black women in STEM. And she's on the board for Black in Cancer, which is an organization that aims to strengthen networks and highlight Black excellence in cancer research and medicine. She is also part of the STEM Avengers. See, I told you she's a superhero. Through that, she has successfully planned the STEM Success Summit, a virtual conference designed to equip and empower young adults ages 18 through 35 who are traditionally underrepresented in STEM, to launch and build a successful STEM career with purpose. Corey continues doing advocacy work via community service, workshops, and public speaking engagements while redefining the image of STEM. Dragons, I am honored, and I hope you feel honored as well to be joined today by Dr. Corey Grayson. And when she finishes, I will ask her a few questions and then allow some of you to ask some questions. So if you will be thinking while she speaks to you about some of the things that you want to know about, we will have an opportunity to speak with her after her presentation. Please help me make welcome Dr. Grayson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me this morning. Truly appreciate it. So I'm going to start off by talking about my journey and how I became a biomedical engineer. And if Kelly, if you could let me share my screen so I could show them my presentation.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second.
Of course. Okay, so
There you go.
okay, awesome. You can see the screen.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so good morning. My name is Dr. Corey with a K, not a C. And so I am a biomedical engineer. And so today I'll be talking about my journey on how I became one. So first off, what is a biomedical engineer? It's a relatively new position that has been around in the past 50 years, but basically a biomedical engineer analyzes and designs solutions to problems in the medical industry. So basically we're trying to help patients live better quality of lives. So we're basically using engineering principles, which involves a lot of science and math, as well as English. I'm sure some of you guys know these subjects, in order to kind of solve these medical problems. So some of the recent kind of innovations that have happened within the past decade are some wonderful and cool things like an artificial heart. So sometimes patients can have heart failure and they're not readily available hearts for them, such as a heart transplant. So biomedical engineers have come up with a device called an artificial heart that works very similar using different technologies in order to make sure that the patient can survive without necessarily a human heart, which is pretty cool, right? You also have something called a camera pill. So this was recently invented a couple years ago. And what that is basically you swallow it like a normal pill. And it's basically what scientists and doctors use in order to detect esophageal cancer. So that's pretty cool. Instead of like doing things that are invasive that may hurt the patient or make them uncomfortable, this is just another way that we have used our degrees in technology in order to do an analysis or diagnosis like that. You also have something that I think is really cool called a bionic lens. And so it's basically like a contact lens, same concept, but it has wiring that will that either truck drivers can use, that can tell them about their route, can tell them about their vehicle, as well as you can put in a patient and it can monitor certain levels such as cholesterol or presence of bacteria or viruses in order to inform that you can send to a doctor, which I think is really cool. And then another kind of form of biomedical engineering is surgery robots. So the robots aren't necessarily doing it by themselves, but they're being guided by surgeons. And so it takes a biomedical engineer to help kind of bridge the gap between the actual doctor doing it and sometimes using something more precise like robotic equipment. And you also have different drug therapies. So the different things that your mom and dad or grandparents may take, a lot of times was developed by a biomedical engineering, researcher. So this is just some of the things that, we work on. And then another cool area, or at least my space, is nanotechnology. And so nano just means it's like really, really, really small. So you can't even see it. But what it does is it works with the nano parts of your body. And so we can deliver drugs to specific areas and specific parts in order to treat different diseases. So all in all, biomedical engineering is literally changing lives. And so if you guys are interested, it is a career I highly recommend, such versatility and so many cool things as like I listed before. So one of the subjects that I have used through my biomedical engineering to chemical engineering research is chemistry. And so I'm a little biased, but chemistry is the branch of science that involves the study of composition, structure, and properties of matter or stuff. So matter is literally all around you, your computer, your table, your books. It starts off with specific atoms, molecules, and goes up. So in high school, that was one of my favorite subjects. And I was taught by my teacher, Mrs. Maudlin. And so we actually made t-shirts and it had the Mod Squad on it. And then we used the chemical symbols, no fear, because at the time, I guess we thought we were fearless. And so the no fear was made out of the chemical elements, nitrogen, oxygen, which is what you breathe, iron, which is what your blood is made of, and then argon, which is a noble gas, which I'm sure you guys will learn about when you take chemistry. Another thing that I use in the work that I do is math. Lots and lots of math. And so basically what math is the science of structure, order, and relation that is evolved from counting, measuring, and describing the shapes of objects. So learning your times tables, very important. Learning your addition, subtraction, because it only builds as you go higher in your grades, okay? So for me, I loved math, always have. I remember when I was in elementary school, we used to have competitions. If you got all your times tables right, then you got to sit out for that lesson and go play. So I was always the person that wanted to go play. So I truly would study hard enough that way I could just relax and then also know my times table. So it's still very important. Another important subject that I think a lot of people don't equate sometimes with science or engineering is English. So not necessarily the language, but as far as like composition, so the writing your essays, writing poems, writing anything down, that really kind of helps when it comes to writing about science. And as well as language arts and history. When you have a good grasp on English literature and language arts, it's really easy to understand things that you're reading, as well as being able to tell a story and to talk about science. So these are some important subjects that you guys should also be looking into if this is something you want to do as far as becoming a scientist or biomedical engineer. So in order to become that, like what do I have to do? What do you need to do, right, Dr. Corey? So education, college, what is the pathway? So this is normally what people do is they usually go on to some type of university. So for me, I went to Norfolk State University, which is an HBCU in Norfolk, Virginia, and I got my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. So this is my graduation day, and this is my brother, my older brother, standing next to me. So that was a really proud moment. I got my bachelor's. Chemistry was super hard, but I made it through and was super excited to go on to the next phase of my education, which was grad school. So I went to Cornell University and I got my Master's of Science and as well as my PhD, or what we call a Doctor of Philosophy in Biomedical Engineering. So a PhD is basically the highest degree that you can obtain in the United States. And it basically means that you're an expert in the field. And so I'll go in later about my research, but super happy. It took me about 6 years to finish, which can be a long time as far as education. But now I'm Dr. Corey. So I also, before I actually went on to grad school, I actually took kind of a gap year or two. And so I worked at a biomedical device company called CryoLife in Kennesaw, Georgia. And so basically this is what I worked on, this device. And so what it was is that we have patients who undergo dialysis. And so dialysis is when your kidneys are no longer working to filter your blood. And so you need to go do an external type of dialysis with a machine. But a lot of times when you are constantly poked and pricked, your veins can kind of collapse and scar over and it becomes very difficult. So the company that I worked for actually made this device to make it easier for dialysis to happen. And so when we put it into a patient, what we're doing is doing a venotomy. So basically an incision to the vein so you can go straight to the heart. And then creating, again, this kind of artificial vein and artery system in order for doctors to actually prick that instead of your actual name. So again, we have a problem, which is how can we make sure we're giving effective dialysis to patients whose veins aren't working anymore, and a solution, which is the graft. So I worked on this for about a year before I started grad school. So next I wanted to move on to my research. I actually had a friend that I was in grad school with, and we made this video on how I basically was trying to target late stage prostate cancer. And I'll go ahead and play a little bit for you all.
Meet Zach. Zach's body is functioning normally. His cells are replicating in a precise and orderly fashion following a set of signals in the cell growth cycle. But today, one of Zach's cells is about to mutate, causing it to grow wildly out of control, ultimately leading to a deadly cancerous tumor in his prostate. There are 4 stages of prostate cancer, starting with stage 1. In stage 1, the doctor identifies that there's a tumor within the prostate. When it comes to stage 4, the cells of the prostate kind of break up and travel throughout the body. So the cancer spreads throughout the body and it goes to either the bones, the lymph nodes, or other organs. For stages 1 through 3, the cancer is actually treatable through surgery, radiation, or hormone therapy. But the treatment options become so limited when the patient presents as stage 4 prostate cancer.
Especially with an African American men, they don't always present at stage 1. They usually present at later stages with more aggressive forms. So that is actually what's being presented in clinic. So how can we treat those stages in these cases? And so in my research, I'm hoping to, I don't want to say cure, but I want to provide them more treatment options.
So that's my good friend, Dr. Corey Grayson. Dr. Grayson is a chemical engineer working at Cornell University / Vanderbilt University, and she is studying prostate cancer, specifically how to stop the spread of cancer and eliminate tumor cells that travel through the bloodstream. Could you explain to us a little bit more of the process of what your research entails?
My research mainly focuses on studying prostate cancer. Normally with most cancers, the primary tumor is not the issue or the problem. It's usually the spread. So 90% of cancer-related deaths are due to the spread, or what we call metastasis of cancer cells. So our work in this lab, we look at targeting specifically CTCs. And CTCs are circulating tumor cells that have dislodged from the primary tumor, and they enter into your blood circulation and then find other ways to invade and then metastasize or make smaller tumors in these organs.
It's the spread of tumor cells that leads to stage 4 cancer if it's not treated or caught in time. So the problem comes up is that tumor cells are really good at hiding from our white blood cells as they travel through our bloodstream to other parts of our body. Our white blood cells are essentially our immune system's defense team. So if our tumor cells are able to hide from our white blood cells, then the question comes up, how can we come up with a treatment that is able to eliminate these circulating tumor cells and stop the spread of cancer?
So we have developed a nanoparticle or a liposome. So it's very, very small. And we have decorated it with 2 different proteins on it. One is E-selectin, I'll talk about later, and then TRAIL. So TRAIL is specific and special because it targets cancer cells specifically while sparing normal healthy cells. And so that makes it good as a cancer therapeutic.
All right, let's start off with the definition of liposome. So liposomes are these small spherical particles that we can't see with our eyes or with our naked eyes, and they have a similar structure as a bubble. So think of them as like a biological bubble. In the lab, Dr. Grayson decorates the surface of the liposomes with 2 proteins, E-selectin and TRAIL. E-selectin is a protein that white blood cells recognize as friendly and connect the liposomes to the surface of the white blood cells. Having the liposomes on the surface of the white blood cells creates a sort of invisibility cloak. When a white blood cell approaches a tumor cell, the second protein, TRAIL, attaches the liposome to the surface of the tumor cell. Once the TRAIL protein is connected, the tumor cell performs programmed cell death. The reason this invisibility method is considered a good treatment for prostate cancer is because it specifically targets tumor cells that are circulating through our bloodstream, and it doesn't attack any other fast-growing cells, such as our cells that cause our hair to grow.
What we did is we took these proteins, specifically TRAIL, and put them on liposomes. And once we put them in circulation with other cancer cells, we saw that they reduced cancer cell viability almost down to 90%. So it's basically killing them in circulation. And that's what we want.
In addition to looking into this invisibility cloak method, she's also interested in which types of white blood cells are actually carrying this liposome.
So with that, I'll stop it because it's a little bit longer. But basically, we had a problem which was prostate cancer, preventing it from spreading. And then this was part of the solution, creating that small nanoparticle that you guys can't see, but kind of shows you how we can use different kind of biomedical engineering methods in order to specifically target different diseases. I just happen to choose prostate cancer because it's something that affects some of the men in my family. And unfortunately, my grandfather passed away from prostate cancer while I was doing grad school. So I saw a problem, I wanted to create a solution, and that was one. So here's just another video just showing me in lab kind of what I like to do. I was doing a Western blot. I was also doing like some cell culture stuff. So I just kind of wanted to show you all that as well.
Okay, future Dr. Grayson. I'm a biomedical engineer at Cornell University and a visiting scholar at Vanderbilt University. And my research focuses on prostate cancer.
Did you always really want to be a scientist?
No, I had no idea.
And when you like have that moment?
But I knew I wanted to be a scientist probably when I started applying to college. And then when I got into my scholarship group and we were all STEM majors, and when we had our APS, which was like a Wednesday meeting, every time we would have that, it was mostly meds.
So I go on to talk
focusing
about
on prostate cancer in my research. Along the way, I've learned some techniques to help me like reach to my conclusions and kind of confirm or not confirm my hypothesis. But at the end of the day, I think it's just let me know that I can really do anything I put my mind to, even if I don't continue doing this research. And when I move on to a legislative space, I have the skills that a PhD has taught me to, as far as critical thinking skills, leadership skills, analysis, data analysis, and I can apply that to any job, any field that I want to work in.
So yeah, all in all, that was kind of my journey to where I am now. And I really love what I do. I like being in a lab environment, working with different stuff, working with cells, working also with the people that I'm around, the projects I get to work on, the impact that they may have. And so if this is something that you're really interested in, please let me know. I would gladly tell you more. But at this moment in time, if you guys have any questions, or Ms. Kelly, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Grayson. Can you stop sharing your screen for me? Okay, thank you. So one of the questions that I did want to ask you, and I'm hoping that I have a minute or two for a question from the group, but I heard you talking about Miss Maudlin in high school. Your high school, was it your chemistry teacher?
Yes.
And you did talk a lot about some of the things that you did while you were in school with math, science, and reading. Can you just kind of talk quickly about anything you remember specifically from elementary school, a club, a science fair, a class, a teacher that kind of made you want to go in this direction?
So elementary school, we would have to do science fair projects. So a lot of times, my brother, I had an older brother, so he would do them as well, and our mom would help us with them. So I actually got my kind of start with science from my mother. So sometimes my brother would kind of wait a little bit to the last minute, but my mom would come in and help me and my brother kind of think of different science projects we could do. So when it came to either showing the molding of bread over time, or doing a volcano, or making a model of a decaying tooth, these were all projects that we got to be a part of that my mom actually helped us do. So things like that actually really kind of pushed me towards science. And I mean, I had many teachers that were also very enthusiastic about the subjects that they taught. But for me, the moment that stands out the most is my mom helping me out with my science fair projects. And we still talk about that and laugh about it today.
Awesome. I do have some hands raised. I think Avery has a question, so I'm going to unmute Avery and let her, let's see, I lost her. Avery, did you leave me? There you are. There you go.
I wanted to know what first, like, what did you first build when you started your job?
That's a good question. So one of the main things, quote unquote, that I built was what we would call tumor spheroids. And so what that is basically I made small little tumors in order to replicate what they look like. And so that was kind of really fun. I call them my tumor babies because they're literally like hundreds of like small little tumors. But that was one of the first things that I got to do by myself, was create them so that way they would look very similar to how a tumor would look in the body. It's very hard to do that outside the body. So that was one of the very first things that I built. Thank you, Avery, for your question.
Okay, and then John Everett has a question.
So my question is, who did you work with when you were in college?
So I worked with a few people actually. So for college, I would do what we call internships. And so I would go to different universities and work in these huge research labs. So I got to work with chemists, chemical engineers, at Georgia Tech, at the Naval Research Laboratory, and I got to work on many cool projects. One was like a cancer sensing device. The other one was for military personnel and how we could prevent them from being exposed to harmful substances. And the last one was working with like an optical device, how you can see in like computers and a different type of equipment. So I literally worked with people from, over the United States. And so that was really fun and really helped with my experience to become a biomedical engineer.
Okay, thank you, John Everett. And then I think, just so I can give you all a break, I do want to let one more person ask a question. Maya. Go ahead and unmute, Maya. Uh-oh. I think she may be having a little trouble. How about?
I can unmute myself. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't letting me. Does your job involve taking a lot of risk?
Great question.
That is a great question. And yes, it does. A lot of times with biomedical engineering, you're venturing into spaces that are unknown. So you have to venture out and take risk in order to make these kind of discoveries. But with risk comes great reward, right, when it works, but it's also a lot of failure. So I try things sometimes over and over again, and I may not get the result I want, but that comes with, experience and with anything. So yes, every day is a risk because I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen when I go into lab, but so much reward behind it when things actually, get done and I'm able to publish or, make something like my tumor babies. So yes, a lot of risk, but definitely so much reward on the back end.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya. That was such a good question. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and end our meeting. I do realize that a lot of you have your hands raised, and so there are a lot of questions for Dr. Grayson. But what I'll let you do is submit those questions to your teachers so that we can get those to Dr. Grayson, and she can get some answers back to everyone who did have a question for her, who didn't have an opportunity before our meeting ended. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your career day today. We hope that you're enjoying Career Week. And again, Dragons, please help me give a warm and just appreciative thank you. You can give her a round of applause. You can give her some happy hands. Any way that you can to show your appreciation to Dr. Grayson for sharing her wonderful, wonderful work with us today. I know she really has impressed me and just makes me want to work harder and make sure that your teachers are sharing every opportunity available with you so that you can do some of the great things that Dr. Grayson does. She truly is a superhero. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.